welcome to Ep.3 of the Two Generations, One Mic podcast. Again, thank you all so much for being here if you haven't heard it enough already. If you guys haven't, make sure to check out episode 1 and 2. They should already be up. Hopefully this is going up on Friday. We're trying to get these cranked out because it's been a very, very hectic week. Yeah, thank you guys all so much for being here.
Yeah, it's been a weird, fast-paced couple of weeks, especially for me, doing the changeover at the theater, and then you starting a new job this week. Did your classes start again this week as well?
Yep. So today's Wednesday, because this will be going out on Friday, so I'll actually be doing my last day of classes whenever you're listening to this. But yeah, I started classes on Monday. I just started my very first criminal justice class on Monday.
What does that entail? What is criminal justice?
Well, it's actually, yes, it's crazy you asked me that because I actually just learned that today in class. So I went to class on Monday, and it was just more of like a get-to-know-you kind of class, like getting to know the professor and stuff. But today we had our second class, and I actually learned the difference between like criminal justice and like criminology and stuff. And so criminal justice is really specifically just like, it's basically just learning everything about the court system and learning how to learning the ins and out of court. And like criminology is like the study of crime. It's like if one person commits a crime and then this person doesn't commit a crime and they're from the same neighborhood, they do a bunch of tests to like see why that could have been. So yeah, I'm studying criminal justice because one day I want to become an attorney. But yeah, I just started my very first class for criminal justice this week because this is the start of the second semester, and this second semester is going to be pretty tough, but I'm excited because I'm so ready to start learning about all this stuff so I can start my career one day.
That's great. You know, I didn't even know that you were interested in that sort of thing. Are you following in the steps of your uncle?
Yeah, I've always been inspired by, my Uncle Doug, and on my mom's side, my Aunt Jody, she has her own law firm and stuff in California, so I've always been inspired by everybody in our family.
Well, that's cool, man. You know what? I really didn't know that about you. I thought that, and it's a time in your life when you think you might go one way and go another.
Because I also do, this summer I want to take the classes and get the hours to also become a realtor. So, I could flip and flop, but I do want to become a realtor as well.
Yeah, well, that's two good ways to go. People are always going to need houses and always going to need a lawyer.
Yeah, right? What have you been up to this week? Just work, staying busy at work? How's the new house treating you?
Oh, it's pretty good. We're slowly hanging a picture in this room and some curtains in that room. It's coming around.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of work at the theater, as I told you guys before. We're changing owners over the past couple of weeks, and they're really doing some good work renovating what's a 25-year-old structure.
In one of the future episodes, after they get all the renovations done, you'll have to send me some pictures so I can show everybody and we can tell everybody about the finished renovations.
Absolutely. It won't be long either. As soon as we ended the Christmas show on the 22nd of December, we started immediately tearing things out. We took a whole wall down in the restaurant and completely renovating the restaurant and revamping the menu. And so it's going to be good. The theater side didn't need as much work, but she was also really focused on the restaurant side and making something new for this area in that aspect. And then the theater side kicks back off at the end of this month. We have a couple special events, and then we have a full roster of productions all year long. I'm glad
that they're, not necessarily starting to wrap up the renovations, but I'm glad that it won't take too long so you guys can get all the new stuff flowing and get back in the system for the new year and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of a slow time for theater this time of year, January and February, but we like to have special events, concerts, and things like that for the first
in
month.
Like the beer garden and stuff.
Beer garden it's so cold, man.
I know, especially, here in Texas right now, it's freezing. So my criminal justice class is at 10 in the morning, and I think it was like maybe 36 degrees when I went to class this morning, and next week, I think the high in all of East Texas is going to be like 28 degrees or something like that, so walking to class is going to be so fun next week.
You know what? Probably are going to have some snow, even where you are, and they're talking about snow even as far south as Houston.
Wow.
Within the next 7 to 10 days.
Well, I hope so. I love the snow. I'm from Wisconsin. You knew that obviously, but I love the snow. So I just hope the roads don't freeze over and it doesn't get too dangerous. Obviously.
Well, I hope so too. Yeah, it's going to be a hard polar vortex that comes down and pushes in. We've had that for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, but that's expected in the north.
We're also we're up in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains.
You're right. Everybody out there listening, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview for this week's episode. A lot of heartfelt stuff. There's a lot of really tough stuff I want to touch on. We also want to touch on TikTok and its possible ban at the end of this week or the coming weeks, and its plans to be bought. We also want to talk about the food processing and all the health problems in America and the new changing administration, what their plans are to do about all that stuff. And then you guys heard us talk at the end of last week's episode of my dad talk about some social issues that we want to touch on, and just some causes that we really want to bring attention to, and we'll touch that in at the end of the episode, and hopefully you guys will comment down below some things that you guys care about, and maybe some causes you guys would like us to touch on.
Well, we do want to do that at the end of the episode, but right at the beginning of here, we want to say that, of course, our prayers and thoughts go out to everyone affected by the terrorist attack at the very 1st of January in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And, of course, what happened also in Las Vegas, which was a tragic...
the Cybertruck that exploded in front of the Trump Hotel or the Trump building.
Right, two horrific things that happened
within 24 hours of each other.
Right, it was a terrible...
I saw a security camera video. I mean, I heard about what happened in New Orleans, and I didn't think much of it. Not like I didn't think something happened or whatever, but I just didn't. Later on that night, I saw a security cam video of what had actually happened, and I'm not going to show the video to you guys, but man, it's just there was a truck going about, I'd say 80 miles an hour just through a crowd of people, and it's just awful. I mean, all the stuff that's going on in America right now. I mean, this is just the perfect time that everybody needs to realize these are times we all need to stick together and help each other out in these times, because everybody needs help right now, especially one of the very main topics of this episode that we want to talk about, obviously, is the devastating fires that have been going on in the last week in California. There's so many people in California that need help right now, and it's just devastating, all the stuff that's going on over there. Dad, you want to talk about that?
Well, I'm sure they've seen the newscast. I'm certain everybody out there is
of course. I mean, it's everywhere.
Well, let's talk about the fires, because they're horrific, and I've been watching intently. I've just been glued to the television about it, because
I think we all have.
I've worked in California. I used to live in California in various parts. I have friends in California, and I have family that live out there. I'm deeply invested in that part of the country, and I love California. It's got a lot of problems, but the fires really have got my attention over the past week, really 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean, this isn't the first time they've had those types of wildfires up there either.
Oh no, it's a tinderbox up there. I mean, it's always a risk.
Yeah.
First off, just prayers for everybody affected. At least 25 people, I think, have lost their lives.
24 people died in these fires. Our hearts go out to all the people that have lost their lives, and anybody that's lost everything that they own, and I mean their homes, their neighborhoods, their schools.
Tens of thousands of people are displaced right now.
I know it.
Homes destroyed, and there's going to be billions of dollars in damage, and it's just a horrible catastrophe.
It was at least 10,000 structures had burned down, and that was updated 5 days ago, so there's no telling what the toll is at now.
Right, and just one of the most beautiful parts of the country, just a horrible situation. And I know there are some very heroic efforts going on by the firefighters right now, but I think there was a ton of shady stuff that we always find out. Everything always kind of comes to light, and I think underlying everything was some incompetence on the part of state leaders, and just a sad situation. The latest I heard was that the mayor, city council had cut over $17 million from the budget over the past year or so, and there were reservoirs that were supposed to be full that weren't. There were some that supposedly had been planning and being built. These reservoirs, which are essential to a dry area like that.
Right,
The swamp back is 10 years ago. These things were planned and paid for, and they've still not even built. They couldn't get water to some of the fire hydrants. It was just, it's a lack of competence all the way around. And even if you want to blame global warming, if that's true and that's the case, if that's the case, then they should be ready for something like this.
Absolutely. And I mean, don't cut the fire department budget by millions of dollars whenever you live in such a high hazard area.
That's the point, because they haven't cleared the forests, swept the forest, quote unquote. That's what they call it.
Yeah, right. Like the kindling and all the types of dry brush on the ground.
Right, that's part of your forest management. You have to do that, and then if you know it's going to be dry and there's a global warming, as people want to say, if that's the case, then you need to be ready for this type of situation. And here's the thing. I didn't know much about this either, Ethan, but I had always heard of the Santa Ana winds, and I didn't know. I thought that for some reason that they came off the coast. That's not the case at all. Actually, they come down out of the mountains, and they get forced down as they come down a little closer toward the coast from east to west most of the time. They come down in these gullies and these hills, and they're forced down, and then that makes them also be less humid. They lose their humidity as they come in, and they also get forced into these gullies, these valleys, and that makes them stronger. And so,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was just actually finna talk about the same thing about the winds and stuff, and how I saw this video about how this lady, she had predicted maybe a year or two ago. I mean, not necessarily like she predicted like these fires were gonna happen, but she had literally said that LA, like just the exact words you said, is like a tinderbox, and all it would take is the right day, the right weather, and I mean, there's so much possibility for high winds like that in an area like that, and she said in that video, all it'll take is the right amount of winds on the right day, and I mean, it'll just light up. I mean, and that's what it was. I mean, these are hurricane, these are 90 to 100 mile an hour hurricane winds we're talking about that is carrying these fires from neighborhood to neighborhood. And it's not like, it's not like us in East Texas. Like in East Texas, we have about maybe 40 yards in between our neighbors and stuff. We got backyards, we got the side yards. We got all this stuff in between our neighbors and stuff, even though they're still our neighbors. But in California, I mean, there's so many more people there. Their houses are like house, like all in a row, all this shrubbery, all these cars right on top of each other, gas stations, grocery shops. I mean, it's terrible to think about. Like, I mean, all these people that have lived there for all these years have lost their schools, their high schools they went to when they were kids, their family homes. There's so many celebrities. I mean, of course, like, these aren't the people that are going to be mainly affected by it, but at the same time, they are, because, I mean, they were directly affected by it. People like Miles Teller from Top Gun, his entire mansion was burned down. Paris Hilton's childhood home was burned down, and there's many more. Eugene Levy from Schitt's Creek, his mansion burned down in the Palisades. There's so many people that are just affected by these fires. There's so many other things going on with these fires too. Like there's this one story that I saw, and I just wanted to mention real quick before we. I mean, I know we have a couple more things we want to talk about on this topic, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about was. My girlfriend Alyssa actually mentioned to me that there have been people that are going around dressed as firefighters, and they're actually looting these burnt down homes, or these homes that are in areas that are like they're planning for fires to move into these areas, and people that have evacuated. There's people dressing as firefighters and breaking into these homes or going into these wastelands of burnt down homes and looking for anything they can score. I mean, it's just terrible for people looking to gain benefit off of, other people's terrible misfortune. I wanted to talk about that a little because I haven't heard about that at all until she had mentioned it to me, so I'm sure other people haven't. But yeah, that's something else that's going on up there right now. There's a lot of looting going on with like people, like I said, dressed up as firefighters or just other random people walking the streets looking for anything.
Oh, I did see that. There have been reports of that, and there have been actually reports of gangs of people. Not necessarily dressed as firefighters, but just, gangs of people
looting.
Looting, and sometimes immediately burned out, or sometimes still on fire. Construction. They don't even allow the firefighters or the police a chance to come into that, neighborhood, and they're already there. There's that. I don't know what they're going to get out of it.
Yeah, right.
Maybe some jewelry, but it's tragic. Crime anywhere is tragic, but especially after a tragedy like this, but not much is left of some of these houses anyway. So, it's just they're just burned out shells of houses, house after house for miles.
Yeah.
There's always some kind of shady things going on in tragedies like that. There's always going to be somebody that's going to, try to take advantage of that situation.
So. And there's also been people spotted. There have been multiple people that have been stopped trying to start more fires on their own, and like Good Samaritans have stepped in and stopped them from committing these acts and stuff of arson, of course, and like burning down whole neighborhoods when this fire stuff is going on like this. And there's been a lot of people that have had to step in and I think I've seen about 3 or 4 people that have tried to do this, and like they've been stopped by people. Well, I mean, why try to cause more destruction? But
let me ask you this: if you listen to because the internet's blowing up with conspiracy theories about why these fires started,
right?
And, a lot of times it is arson or just by mistake, and then a lot of times I think that the officials will tell us what they want us to hear, just to pacify the news outlets or whatever.
Right? Yeah.
When they really don't know, but it'll sound good. Some of the theories, the quote unquote conspiracy theories that are going out right now. I mean,
we love to share those on here.
Well, you're talking about these celebrities. There's celebrities that are included in the whole Diddy list.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I've heard stuff like that too. Like, there's been reports.
But it could be.
There's a possibility that all these fires could be a plant to, burn up evidence in that area or areas and stuff.
Right. So there's that whole rabbit hole you can go down. I mean, it's just weird to think about.
Everybody in that area right now is on edge, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of different things you can look at when you look at something like this.
Yeah.
But I know I will never know personally, because I'm just not. I'm not God. I can't see what's going on. Something that I just don't know about. But I do know about the incompetence and the things that happened after the fire started.
Yeah.
That just not.
Well, there's also things like the insurance companies denying people insurance like 3 months leading up to this stuff.
Dropped a lot of the fire insurance.
People are getting dropped from their insurance, yeah.
Which seems kind of strange.
It's all the things together. It doesn't make it seem like such a big coincidence, But I mean, it may all come to light, but we may never truly know. And all that matters right now is all those people that were affected get help. And I mean, we're not trying to make this into a conspiracy thing for our podcast. We just want to bring attention to it and talk about it.
Absolutely not. It's just that's why just really interested. I used to be interested in current events when I was growing up, when I was your age, and throughout my 20s and 30s, until I got kind of tired of hearing about bad things going on.
Yeah, right.
I would watch the newscast. It was, we had 3 channels. We had like ABC, NBC, and CBS.
Did you have to move the antennas to 3 different positions to get them?
Yeah, that's true. And until Fox, we really only had 3. And your newscasters were, Walter Cronkite, Tom Brokaw. These people you just kind of trusted. They were almost like an uncle.
Like a face and a voice you could trust.
Well, yeah, like a dad or an uncle or somebody in your family, because they were there every night at dinner time. And so, of course, your parents wanted to watch the news. And I'm just interested in current events. I mean, growing up, it just interested me. Politics, presidential politics, what was going on in the world at the time. I just kind of fell out of it.
Me as a young adult, I get all my, not necessarily information. Like, if I want to learn about something, I'll do a little more research on my own. But, I mean, I get all my stuff from TikTok and stuff. And that's another big thing that we want to talk about this week is the ban coming at the end of this week on TikTok, their possible ban.
Well, let's talk about it. What do you think about that?
Well, all that I really want to say about it is it's crazy, for one. It's just so crazy to me that this is such a big problem, they think. They think it's just such a big problem in America. I understand where they're coming from, thinking that it's like a security problem and we could just be giving like information to China and stuff. And, well, I understand that. At the same time, this is like such a big part of people's livelihoods and like things that people do. Like, there's so many people that have made a living off of TikTok, or like people that have gone famous for the right reason on TikTok. Just like little family pages that have gone viral for people wanting to watch their family's bedtime stories and stuff. I mean, there's such a wide variety of things you can do on TikTok, and they have like a STEM section. There's a specific section if you just want to like do learning while you watch and stuff. I mean, that's just another little good like thing that comes with TikTok. But some good news about the TikTok ban is that the whole point of this ban is that the guy that owns TikTok or made TikTok or whatever, they think that he is like giving our information to the Chinese government or whatever. So their whole goal with this is either to shut TikTok down in the United States or get him to sell it to some US sanctioned company or some like big billionaire in the US to buy TikTok. And recently, in the past 2 or 3 days, there have been not necessarily just rumors, but kind of facts that there's a couple of big ballin' people in America that are really, really invested in buying it. Like, for anybody out there that doesn't know, there's a really big creator on YouTube named Mr. Beast who has, he has more followers on YouTube than there are people that live in the entire United States as of, like, this month. He's a really big, popular creator, and he's in the talks with people at TikTok and other big billionaires to create a team of people to go and buy TikTok. And Elon Musk is a part of that team, and rapper Meek Mill is also a part of that team. There's a bunch of different, like, big names that are kind of working with Mr. Beast to work towards getting TikTok bought and hopefully keep it around in America, because it's a big thing. We use TikTok to try and get our, podcast out there to the world.
Well, these big tech companies, the same thing happens with Meta and Facebook, and
right.
the same thing happens with all the big tech companies. They're OpenAI, whoever it is, they're going to use your data if because who reads the terms and agreement part, right?
Right.
And so just about any time you're using a Google or Facebook, they're tracking what you said, just like we talked about on the podcast.
How they track what how they track what you like, track things you might want to buy or stuff like that.
Yeah, well, if it is indeed a Chinese spy asset, who's to say who's not doing it? So I don't know, but TikTok to me was I thought it was just fun. I never downloaded it. I haven't used it yet, but I wanted to because after watching so many TikToks, I was like, man, that's really cool how they edited that. And,
right. TikTok is just so creative, and there's so many different niches on TikTok. Like, people call it, like, there's all different types of different names. Like, people that like to make a Stanley cup of water every morning before they go to work. There's a thing, like, people like to call it water talk to, like, it's called water talk because you just want to watch the TikToks about how to make your water in the morning, or like, or makeup talk, or, just like watch TikToks on like makeup videos and stuff like that. Like, so many different like niches and little communities that these people have created, and it's just going to disappear.
Well, I don't know. Or is it just going to be taken up? I've already heard of one called Red
Note. Yeah, Alyssa told me about that earlier. Apparently, what Alyssa told me is that people are specifically going and downloading that app, Red Note, and they're signing up for it and stuff, specifically because it's a Chinese-sanctioned social media, and they're purposefully giving their information to the Chinese government to spite the U.S. government.
That's just insane.
That's serious, by the way. That's a serious thing.
Yeah, I heard something about it.
Alyssa told me that there's it's like a Chinese sanctioned social media or whatever, so it's mainly used by Chinese children or young adults or whatever. So apparently people from America that have been posting on it recently, and little Chinese kids are asking them for help on their English homework and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's not only interesting and fun and entertaining, and who knows who's going to go viral at any given time. I mean, just look to a girl, but it also is I thought it was a good way to exchange information, and I thought, well, if they're trying to censor, communities of people who are trying to get information out there that we're not told by the legacy media,
right.
The ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, we're not told some things, and so, for instance, we were talking about the drones or the weird fog that's happening.
See, if it weren't for TikTok, I wouldn't have even known about that.
I really wouldn't know about that until they finally touched on it,
right. And that's a lot of people are conspiracizing that's a big reason that people like Joe Biden specifically is the one that brought all this about in his 4-year term. People think that he specifically just kind of wants to censor that out a little bit, all the information spread that's happened on TikTok, and kind of keep it on a strap of what they get out there into the whole world.
Some people are looking at it like that, some people are looking at it like censorship, and some people are looking at it like a national security issue.
Well, and see, that's what TikTok's lawyers are trying to fight as well. I mean, it seems like the ban is going to go through unless it gets bought, but TikTok's lawyers were trying to fight that this is an encroachment on free speech and stuff, because, that's to an extent what it is.
Yeah, well, it's all about trying to make TikTok U.S. Compliant with U.S. law,
right.
and trying to weigh the national security issues with a person's right to free speech. So,
It's a big conversation there.
It is a conversation to have. So,
and just like we said, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say maybe some people will comment. Give us some comments on our YouTube channel, and tell us what you guys think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you guys comment down below and let us know what you guys think about all these topics we're talking about.
So, this TikTok ban in the U.S. is that immediate, or
so it's taking place on the 19th. In 4 days, TikTok should be banned unless it's bought. And I'm sure it could be bought later after the 19th. But if it's bought by the 19th, it'll stay up. Yeah, but I don't know anything about the plans to buy it. Like, it's all talks right now. But as of right now, on the 19th, or I'm assuming, because it's kind of weird to me that it's on the 19th, considering that the inauguration is going to happen on the 20th. It could just be because of the changing over of terms, and this was Joe Biden's thing he wanted to get done.
Maybe we could talk about in future podcasts. Maybe we could talk about the incoming cabinet. And since we were talking about that, RFK Jr. is one of those.
And, RFK Jr. is what's the title of it? Head of Health and Safety. Health and Human Services, something like that. I'll pop up a picture of him and his title on the screen right now. But yeah, he's going to be coming in with Trump. He was actually running against Trump in the election, but he decided to pull from the race and start to support Trump. And now Trump has taken him in as one of his cabinet members to control the health and stuff for the United States.
And hopefully he'll be confirmed. And that's kind of what we were going to talk about. And I've done some studying up since the last time we talked. About the food.
We always try to get a little informed about these topics, of course, before we just go and talk about them.
Well, yeah, I don't want to sound ignorant, but we don't know everything, obviously, and there's a lot of information out there about why Americans' diets are so unhealthy. And I've known it for years. I mean, I've had friends. We've talked over my late adulthood. As this issue became kind of more important and more pronounced over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, especially
about additives and the processing, the ultra-processed foods that we eat that are not healthy at all for you.
Yeah.
And the huge lobbyists, groups of these food processors, these General Mills or,
all these big corporations and stuff.
Right, and you got to wonder why the Food and Drug Administration would allow.
In the past, has allowed all this.
Really, poisons.
Yeah, if you look back into this may be a little too far, but look at it. The 20s, the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. If you look anywhere through that time, even 70s, 80s. There's really hardly any signs of obesity in this country. Like, if you look at a picture from this 50s in the middle of New York City, you will not see a single fat person in sight. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being fat or obesity. I'm just saying, obesity is a major problem in America now, and it's all has to do mainly with all of the things that are added into our foods. Like, I saw a video a long time ago of processed cheese compared to natural cheese being burned under a flame or something, and if you take a look at the processed cheese, it doesn't melt and it shrivels up and starts to burn and stuff, and the natural cheese will start to melt.
Did you see the one where they just the other day I saw this TikTok or YouTube short where they were trying to burn an Oreo cookie with a blowtorch?
It wouldn't or something?
And it wouldn't burn. They did it for 30 seconds with blowtorch.
Yeah.
Or maybe a minute, maybe 3 minutes. I can't remember, but it was just an ungodly amount of time that they just had this blowtorch right on Oreo cookie. It didn't even affect it in the least. It didn't burn it. It didn't melt the stuff on the inside.
See, and what's in this freaking cookie, man? What's making this thing inflammable?
And it's not gonna, Oreos are good. I'll give you that. Who doesn't like to have a good Oreo and a glass of milk every once in a while? But
right.
You gotta wonder what is that even made of that a blowtorch won't destroy an Oreo cookie?
Right.
Oh, man.
Well, also things like, energy drinks and the amount of caffeine they're allowed to have, or all the different additives they're putting in energy drinks, and there's no age restrictions on it, and how bad that could be for children's hearts or things like that, or Red 40 is banned in so many different countries, and that's in so many different red foods and drinks that we eat. It's very not good for you if you consume too much of that. Things like Mountain Dew is completely banned, and I'll have to look at what country it is specifically. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know there's a country that Mountain Dew is literally banned because studies have shown that things in Mountain Dew, and Mountain Dew specifically, can cause dementia, and it's just sitting on every shelf in America.
No, it's unbelievable. It's not just food and the energy drinks and the things like that, but also the things that are added to our water supply.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
The fluoride and the chlorine. Yeah. Once again, you have to weigh the pros and cons. Not every area, not every town or village has a clean water supply from a spring water, so they have to have these water treatment plants. But you got to wonder why they would, push to have a poison, a fluoride, in your drinking water, and I know I've seen some things where they say that apparently is supposed to help your teeth from rotting or whatever.
Right.
I don't know, man.
And they put it on your teeth at the dentist, but at the same time, if you're putting it on my teeth at the dentist to clean it, don't put it in my drinking water.
Right, and if you believe any farther down the line in any kind of conspiracy theory aspect of it, and then you think that it's also supposed to calcify your pineal gland, which is your gland inside your brain, that is responsible for some of the studies. This fluoride will calcify that. And also contribute to things like like you were saying with dementia,
right?
But cancer causing, it's something to think about. And I'm really hoping.
I'm glad you went right into that because I know what you're gonna say. I was just gonna also say just makes me very hopeful that RFK seems very, very, very determined to make a bunch of changes in the processing and all the food in America and. Our health and all those types of stuff.
I really hope they do. I hope that they go from the top down. The FDA needs to be revamped. There's a lot of things in this government that needs to be looked at again and reimagined and revamped. And I hope that not just in the Food and Drug Administration, but all over from all of your alphabet groups, your CIAs and your FBI's and the IRS, and there are a lot of things to look at in this new administration.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about before, I'm really hopeful that maybe we'll start to look at revamping and reimagining those entities and organizations from the top down. And I really think we've got a good start at these.
They just have a lot of work on their hands.
Yeah, these cabinet members, do get confirmed right away, and they can start. Right away. So we'll see in the next coming week.
Well, Dad, moving on from that topic, I know we have two more topics to talk about in today's episode, but I want to kind of switch it up on you. I know we have a little, obviously we're not showing you guys this, but we have a little schedule here to our sides, and I'm going to switch up the topics on you, Dad. So we're going to do a little new thing on this podcast, maybe once every other week, or every week. I don't know. We'll see how it goes from here. But we're going to do kind of like a little dad advice corner. At the end of the episodes, we're just going to have my dad kind of share a little advice to me, or me share advice that I've learned from him, or, just little things. So, Dad, is there any advice that you've made up this week that you'd like to share on the podcast?
Put me on the spot, but we did talk about that, and I was trying to think of something. I've told you a lot of little advice. In fact, because we talk like this, once every day or two, that we don't get to visit as much one-on-one. I always try to drop in advice when I can. As you were growing up, not so much anymore.
He says that, but every day whenever we're on the phone, or every day I get a message, there's a little, some inspirational speech to me.
Yeah, I remember you guys used to say, Dad, do you always have to have a life lesson? I'm like, yeah, I really do. Yes, I want to speak to you,
Well, I'm glad, because, there's so many great things you've taught me, though. Great things that I can take into my life and teach my kids one day, obviously this is, basic stuff. This isn't necessarily advice, but, as kids, you've always trained me and Gabby, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, and, just being polite people to other people, and, you've always taught me to, just be a good guy and stay in my lane, which is the right lane. Like one of the main things you always tell me is just treat my girl good and be good to my mom. That's the main things I always get from you. And I mean, there's so many different lessons that you've taught me. That's why we want to start doing this at the end of every week, so we can go over all the different advice he's given me over the years, and hopefully we can share some advice for other people.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've always thought that just respecting your elders is what they called it when I was growing up, and that means look someone in the eye. If they say, "Hey, you're looking good today," well, you don't just put your head down and go, "Oh, thanks a lot," and walk off. You look at them in the eye and say, "Well, thank you very much. You too."
Right.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing you've taught us. I mean, I try to use that every day, especially like at work and stuff.
Those are little things that we've talked about, over the years. My advice to you right now as an 18-year-old is just to be smart. Be smarter than you think you are.
Right.
Try harder than you think you can. For me, I would say for what's worked for me lately, especially as I get older, is to pray. So look inward, to trust your faith. Rely on your faith and the things that you were taught growing up, and trust yourself, because there's nothing more important than being good to yourself.
Right. I like what you said too. That's good advice for anybody out there. What you said at the beginning. Try and be smarter than you are. Work harder than you think you can, or whatever. I like that.
I would say invest too. Invest not just in monetary goals, but invest in yourself, and that's what you're doing by going to school, trying to explore some different avenues in life, and that will serve you well later in life. So,
right. I always follow the quote, 5 years of pain for 50 years of pleasure. Basically, like 5 years of school, 8 years of school, whatever I got to do to have 60, 70 years of financial freedom and just live my life with my family and go to my job.
Well, I think you got a good start on that.
Yeah.
So that's my advice for this week, is try to be smart and keep on keeping on.
Yeah, that's something you always say, yeah.
Keep going. There's going to be times when it's tough and you just go, man, what am I doing this for? And, there's going to be times when maybe you butt heads with your girl or you have an argument with your professor, or, there's going to be times where life seems tough and you just got to keep on going, and that's and you'll wake up the next day, and because of your faith and because you have a good attitude, you'll get over it, and you'll find a way around the roadblocks,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my dad advice for the week. Be smart, stay on track. So we wanted to spend some time on this podcast and in future podcasts on social issues, a social change, anything that we can do to help bring about a good change in America, in the people that are listening right now, in their situations. I want you to know that while we talked about the devastating fires in California, there are still people reeling from Hurricane Helene here, and it's freezing cold here. Where I live in Southwest Virginia, not far away, 40, 50 miles away in northwest North Carolina,
right,
and in Tennessee and some of those other places that are still terribly struggling through this cold winter. So, because of the effects of Hurricane Helene from a couple months ago, and so
right.
So there are all kinds of things, and maybe we can get some people to comment on their particular passions or things that they're interested in. I think that we'll talk about maybe homelessness, drug addiction, and mental health issues the next time around.
That's what I was going to talk about today, was homelessness for me personally. Like, I know you were just talking about like Hurricane Helene and all that stuff. The main topic that I want to talk about and touch on, like social issue wise, would be homelessness. Like, I can remember from a very young age, seeing homelessness in the real world and recognizing it and not understanding it fully. And I can remember whenever we would go to Dallas as kids. Now, say if we went, I remember specifically this one time we went with my mom and her now ex-husband. We went with them to Dallas for something random, and we pulled up to a stoplight, and there was a man on the side of the road with a cup. They walked down the road and like up to cars and stuff. And I just remember I didn't see him at first, and they said, "Hey, everybody, roll your windows up, lock the doors." And I was like, "What are we getting robbed right now? Like, what's going on?" And out of nowhere, like this just homeless guy just walks by the car, just walks right on by. And ever since I was little, I've just I'd say from that moment right there, I've always just thought about it in a way like, what makes them any different from me? Like why whenever I see them walking down the road, asking me to help them, does that make me think that's a bad person? That's somebody that I should be aware of or something. I get there's a lot of bad people out there, and it's good to be aware, but at the same time, it's just always changed my perspective on it from the second that happened. It's just like, I don't view homeless people or, anybody struggling as, a problem or a disgusting human being that I should lock and roll my windows up from. I've always just seen him as a person that had, maybe a tough time in life, and most of those people end up in those situations because of themselves, but most of those people can't get themselves out of those situations, and they need people's helps, and that's really just what I want to talk about is, like, of course, with this podcast, we're such a small community right now, and hopefully we can grow big one day, and we can't make much change or get thousands of dollars of donations for our causes that we want to bring attention to, right? Sorry, I couldn't find my words.
No,
but, yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's we may not be able to do a whole lot monetarily. Maybe we can get us a GoFundMe together for certain projects in the future or something like that. Or like I said, maybe people can comment on things that they're interested in locally,
Right.
Their local animal shelter or, their local homeless shelter. That I know that we have a great group and organization here in my town, Withville, Virginia, called the Open Door Cafe, and they feed people who need it, no matter if they can pay or not. And they also have other community outreach programs that are very significant. So maybe we can do something for them one day.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what you were saying about, we might not be able to do anything major monetarily, especially now while we're such a small community, but just having some empathy, which is, I think, what you were saying that you had for these people. And I know that we're kind of running out of time, but when I was working out in San Francisco and LA, downtown LA, what really got me, and I've always been concerned about homelessness, especially like veterans who are homeless.
And that's a big problem,
well, why they're in the situation. And I'm lucky, and I've been, on the edge of that over the years.
Sure, we have to.
Away from being on the streets, and if it weren't for a good community of family and friends, I might be there now. But when I was working in downtown LA, we would go to lunch, leave my job, and walk a couple of blocks over to the Subway sandwich shop to get lunch, and literally walked over people on the street.
Yeah.
And to me, being from rural Texas and then going out there and seeing that situation, and there are a lot of homeless people in California because the weather is so good there. It's even in the wintertime, it's 55 at night and 75 in the daytime. That's why there are so many homeless people in those communities of San Francisco and LA, Sacramento, and they're just that's just where people go because they don't have to freeze, Right. But to me, it was just so weird, like walking down the street.
No, yeah, I completely understand that, because remember, me, Mom, and Gabby took that trip to California, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It was an eye-opener for me, too, seeing that big of a density of homeless people. There were tents lined up down Hollywood Boulevard and all types of stuff.
Yeah, and just, the apathy that you kind of, it's just like a feeling of apathy, like people are just
want to help. There's something you feel like you could do.
People could be dead in the street. And, like, to me, I was like, hey, and I talked to my coworkers who are from California. I was like, hey, is nobody going to look at this guy? This guy's, like, laying in the, is it just me, or do we want to kind of see if he's alive? And that was 20 years ago. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's gotten progressively worse. So that is something that is very, very important. I'm glad it's as important to you.
That's just stuff necessarily that we want to talk about, bring attention to, and hopefully you guys will comment down below at the end of this episode here shortly some topics you guys would like us to talk about in the future, some social problems that you guys want us to bring attention to. Yeah, guys, I think that's going to wrap up episode 3 of the Two Generations, One Mic podcast. We want to thank you all so much for making it through this long episode. We appreciate you all so much for being here. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys check out episode 1 and 2 of the podcast. They're already up on the YouTube channel. Dad, did you have any final words you'd like to add?
Well, I just wanted to say thanks again. It's always a lot of fun to talk to you and catch up with you, and we hope that you all will comment, like, maybe subscribe if you still feel like it. But hey, Ethan, maybe in a future episode, I'd like to start talking about music and what it meant to me growing up, and maybe some of the things that you listen to now. Maybe we can talk about some of the things that I turned you on to when you were a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, guys, be expecting that maybe the next or future episodes, and also here coming up shortly, we're also planning on having a guest or two on the podcast, maybe episode 5. This is episode 3, so here shortly we got a lot of good plans coming up for the podcast. So you guys make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, so you guys can stay up to date on the podcast, and don't forget to check out the description.
And we're working on our audio, so it should sound better and better as we go.
New microphone coming soon, that is for sure.
That's right.
Well, once again, thank you guys all. Once again, thank you guys all so much for being here. We appreciate you guys, and make sure to go check out all of our previous episodes. And don't forget to check out episode 4 next Friday. Thank you.
See you next time.